want to talk with not only the consumer, but also realtors in regards to buyer agency agreements, why these are going to become more and more prevalent as the consumer, what to expect when you're reviewing these, and as realtors, what you need to know as well too. So Melissa, welcome to the program.
Hi, Emilio. Thanks for having me back. And thanks everyone for listening. Yeah, like you mentioned, this is kind of an evolution, right? I think that the real estate industry is maybe changing. So much of the world is changing. And, somebody said to me recently, we just have to be comfortable being uncomfortable because we are evolving with it, like it or not. One of the things that we're talking about specifically is buyer agency representation or buyer agency agreement, right? So if there is a person out there looking to buy a house, they decide they're going to hire a real estate agent. Well, forever, the buyer agent that buyer selects is compensated by the seller because the seller pays a commission to their listing agent and the listing agent shares the compensation with the cooperating broker or the co-broke or the buyer's agent. That's the way we've done it, right, for as long as you've been doing it. I can tell you that there have been, for probably about 8 or so years, some antitrust lawsuits potentially pending and or investigations by the Department of Justice about whether or not there's an industry concern of, on a national level, of course, if this is right for consumers, and that perhaps there may be an interest in changing the way we do it, where it's no longer required for a listing agent to share the compensation to the cooperating broker. And now effectively that could mean everybody pays their own fees. So a buyer agent is hired by a buyer to represent them in searching and securing a home, but now the buyer has to compensate that buyer agent directly, however much they negotiate and agree to. I think the part that's difficult or uncomfortable are for, our colleagues who have never done this, because I think that something that oftentimes is overlooked by buyer's agents specifically is the discussion of what's your worth, what's your value, because you are being compensated by the listing broker majority of the time. So buyers just know that the buyer's agent is free. Well, there's no such thing as free, right? Like you have this person who's advocating for you, supporting you, searching homes for you, bringing you through and doing all these processes. They have to be compensated some amount. So I think it's really important as a prospective buyer's agent to be able to have the conversation with your buyer. Hey, listen, I am going to be here for you. It's X number of hours that you can expect that you're going to be getting from me. And this is the rate in which that I charge. Now, I don't think I've heard of anybody going to an hourly rate, but usually, who knows, right? This is where we don't know what's coming down the road. All I know is that there are states that are already in a place where they're no longer mandating for listing agents to compensate cooperating brokers. And we actually have some of that already happening here in Rhode Island, because there are certain brokerages that are basically saying, I'm not going to compensate the buyer's agent. We're just going to leave that up to the buyer to compensate the buyer's agent. And it's created all of this kind of internal rift. But here we are looking at as close to Massachusetts saying, well, we're no longer going to mandate sellers having to compensate these co-brokes. So I don't know where it's going, but I do think a buyer should prepare themselves that just like they have to pay the lender, just like they have to pay their attorney, they may have to be in a position where they are getting used to the idea of compensating their agent for the agent's time that they're dedicating to helping them find, search, secure their new home.